The devastating wildfires in Los Angeles on January 7th were incomparable in so many ways. It took over 3 weeks to actually get them fully contained. In the Palisades area, over 6,800 properties were damaged, and now the recovery process is in process. And we're delighted to be joined today by someone who knows that recovery process intimately. I'm delighted to be joined by Colonel Brian Sawser from the Army Corps of Engineers. So happy to have you here.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
So just really basically, the Army Corps of Engineers, what is its role? What does it do?
So the Army Corps of Engineers, you can trace back to the origins of our nation. And it's really unique for any Army to have this component of your active duty force that also has a crucial role in the infrastructure of the nation. And we really exist to solve the nation's engineering challenges. So you can look at the Hoover Dam, you can look at the Mississippi River, you can look at the Washington Monument. Those are all projects by the Corps of Engineers. Not only do we have that infrastructure role for the nation, we also have environmental stewardship to protect the waterways, but we also have a role in a natural disaster, a declared emergency by the President. In a time of emergency, we are able to really harness the expertise that we need for that type of disaster and deploy quickly to that disaster and respond. And so that's the role of the Corps of Engineers. We do have a daytime mission that's always continuous, building out the infrastructure of the nation. But in times of emergency, we can't deploy forward and come to places like Southern California for a disaster response like this.
When you came to, we're going to focus today on the Palisades fire, when you came and you saw that for the first time, what was your immediate impression when you looked up on those hillsides and you saw what had happened?
Complete devastation. And I think as a citizen, seeing my fellow citizens in pain and suffering and seeing that they had lost everything, that certainly struck a different chord. So from the Corps' perspective, we take this mission incredibly personal. There's a district headquarters here in Los Angeles, the Los Angeles District of the United States Army Corps of Engineers. Our employees that work for that district, several of the employees lost their homes. More employees were displaced from both of these fires, Palisades and Eaton fires. So it was not only a national response for us, it was also personal.
What are the things that you were doing when you're on property?
So on a property, when we come up upon a property, there's a lot of steps that people don't see. We do a hazardous site assessment first. We have to understand the property from an engineering perspective, from an access perspective. So we have heavy machinery that we have to bring into the property. Where are we going to put that heavy machinery? How are we going to get it to the property? How are we going to safely get it off the property? Is there any unique features of this property? Are there retaining walls? Are there swimming pools? Is there a jacuzzi? Is there a buried septic tank? All that has to be diagrammed out. There's a load of pictures that are taken ahead of time. And then we're going to go through an asbestos process where we bring in a certified asbestos consultant that comes in and surveys the property, and then we have to do an abatement of just the asbestos materials on that property first. We're going to bring in an arborist that looks at all the associated trees on the property. They're deemed as hazardous. We'll cut them down and we'll put them into the green waste stream. You do also have concrete and metals that we wash on site as we collect them from a house. So in the Palisades fire area, as an example, Temescal Canyon Road, the city of Los Angeles was incredibly gracious. Early in this process, we identified that as just a vital stretch of an artery coming right out of the Palisades, by which we have set up now, which is essentially a recycling facility there, where we consolidate both concretes and metals. So we have a concrete crushing plant there. We have a metal baler there. So we're washing both of those materials. We crush the concrete, we bale the metal, and then we're able to keep a lot of trucks off the road because that decreases the amount of volume per truck. And then both the crushed aggregate, or the rock, the concrete, is now an aggregate that you can use in the construction supply system here in Southern California. It goes right back into the supply system. Same thing with the metals. It goes to a metal recycling facility. There's several of them here in the Los Angeles area that we utilize. And so that methodology that I just described and that process has been refined really over the last 20 years. Refined over several wildfires here in California, in Hawaii, on the island of Maui. And it's really coming from a couple decades of lessons learned on how to best collect this material, transport the material, and then ultimately dispose the material in accordance with California regulations. So that's how it is done.
Do you have a deadline? How long are you going to be here?
So the president gave us a deadline of January of 26, which is again unprecedented for this kind of this expansive of a disaster in terms of the response rate and then the totality of our response. It's certainly the fastest one that we're going to experience in the Corps of Engineers. We will be here for 2025, and we'll be complete by January 26, but it won't look like the problem is still there largely by summertime. Start your building permits now. Start with your architectural designs now. Start selecting your builders now if you so choose. And you can simultaneously, as we're working debris removal, start the process towards the rebuild. So I have no doubt that there's going to be construction in the Palisades or in Malibu while we're still removing debris.
Are there properties that are not eligible for your Corps to come in and deal with?
Yeah, so I would encourage folks that if you had destroyed structures on your property, absolutely submit an ROE to the county, to LA County Public Works. The eligibility determination is an evolving definition. As it stands now, you need to have a destroyed structure, private property. So this is the private property debris removal program. So it's private property that we are performing this mission on. In some cases, schools, we've performed those. The library in Pacific Palisades we're going to do here very, very shortly. So additional properties can be added later at the discretion between the state of California and FEMA and given to the Corps for execution. But for right now, it's just private property, destroyed structures.
You've been doing this for decades. What did this particular project teach you? What have you learned? Because has this been work as usual, or has this been unorthodox enough that you have taken lessons from this that you will use in the remainder of your work across the world?
That's an excellent question. I think for me personally, I've spent a lot of time overseas, and many times the Army, when we're overseas, we certainly always work with partners, but things tend to be a little bit easier because you don't necessarily need to build consensus for the different problem sets that we have overseas. We can drive a solution and maybe not have to rely so much on partnerships. When you come to a community in the United States, for the most part, I'm not from Southern California. Most of our employees are not from Southern California that are working here. So we are strangers, we are guests of Southern California. So if you don't make those partnerships, if you don't understand how the community works and build those strong relationships, you absolutely cannot accomplish this mission. And I will say, and I could go through a litany of different organizations, governmental agencies here in Southern California, but they have been, without an exception, very accommodating and very understanding of the governor's order to expedite everything, and they've been fantastic. That's at the local level, state level, and certainly our federal partners that are involved in this as well. And I think that the partnership pieces of this is key. And I will say, and that's why coming on shows like this is critically important for us, the most important partner is the affected communities. I mean, it really is. We cannot perform our mission without communicating with those homeowners that lost their homes in those communities, because it's those informal leaders and homeowners associations and churches that have their members in the community. We reach them, we're able to communicate to them, answer their questions directly, get out there in the field. I think that's what moves us along faster, because then people feel comfortable making an election to go with the federal government or not, go with the Corps of Engineers or not.
What's the best website for people to reach out?
That's recovery.lacounty.gov.
This has been literally fascinating, incredibly informative, and I so appreciate your time. Thank you so much, Colonel Sawser, for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
And that's a wrap on this LA Currents.